Welcome to homeschooling. I am so excited for you. I know that you probably are excited too. Maybe a little bit scared at times, but I'm excited for you. Let my excitement come on to you. Now, maybe this is not your first year of homeschooling, and I'm glad to have you here because you said, you know what? I saw in the title that this is going to be a good refresh. And guess what? A refresh is always good. There is more that we can learn. There's things that we can remember. Is that even a word? But recall, okay? We'll say that. Refresh ourselves with. And I need this as I go into a homeschool year too to just get me focused. So there is lots to share, a lot of some details and stuff. So I encourage you to grab a pen and paper and let's jump into today's episode. Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening. As you begin this homeschool year, whether it is your very first year of homeschooling, whether you have little children you're starting off with, or you have pulled children from school and you're starting off with homeschooling, or you've just been at it for a while, I want to ask you a question. Why did you decide to homeschool? Maybe even pause this episode and come up with an answer. It doesn't have to be anything that's long. It could just be a sentence or two. Why did you decide to homeschool? And I want to encourage you to hold on to that. Keep that thought in the forefront of your mind. Now, sometimes our reasons for beginning to homeschool fade away, and there are other reasons that become more important. Sometimes we start off with homeschooling because there is something that we don't want in the alternative to that, which would be either public or private school. We might say, I want to homeschool because I do not want to do X, Y, and Z. I would encourage you that if you are in that mindset, to start working through that and get to the point of saying, we are homeschooling for certain things. And at some points, we just have to put our blinders on. We have to just put our hand up and say, I don't want to know what's going on over there because this is what I have in front of me right now. These are the children I have in front of me, and I'm going to focus on goodness. And there's a lot of negativity that can go on into the world, but right now, just focus on the goodness of discipling and disciplining and teaching your children how you want to teach them, giving them the education you want. Remember your why, especially on those hard days. You know this. I know this. Our kids are not robots. You are not robots either. And we have to live in reality. So keep that in mind as we go through these basics for homeschooling for the beginners and maybe those of you who just need a refresh. 15 years ago, I was in your shoes of entering my very first homeschool year. I was beginning the journey. I can look back at pictures. There's a couple of photos and they're just burned into my mind. I know exactly what they look like. And I had set up a classroom kind of style, and it was actually in our youngest's bedroom. He never played in his room. He was at the age that he would play in our living room. Pretty much all of his toys were in our living room, which was right there around the corner from our kitchen and dining room. And his bedroom was right there off of that as well. It was a cute little Cape Cod that we had. And he didn't play in his room. So I was like, why do I keep bringing these toys back in? So put all the toys in the living room. We had a finished space and put them in there, or he'd play in his siblings' bedrooms with them. And so basically in his room was a bed and a dresser. And then we had a table, an extra like dining room type table someone had given to us. We had a bookshelf, and I had hung some posters on the wall, and we had a couple of chairs around that table. And it worked really well because he would sleep. There was no distractions in his room for him. And he would get up in the morning and we would all have breakfast and then we would go in there for homeschool. And we were done with our stuff by the time that he would take a nap. Or actually, he might have been over his nap time at that point, but I still very much had a quiet room time in the afternoon. But I can still see that little classroom that we had. We ended up moving it the next year down to a part of our finished basement that just seemed to work better for us. We used that for a couple of years. Then we moved to an old farmhouse and we converted a formal dining room into a homeschool classroom. And then we're at the house we're at now. We had a homeschool nook. So we've had various places. But I appreciate having just a place to put everything. And you don't have to have a homeschool space. But anyway, 15 years ago, I was at the beginning of the journey. I was high on life. So excited. I feel like I was living out my childhood dreams of wanting to be a teacher. My brothers actually teased me a little bit because they're like, oh, all those years that you would make us do schoolwork and sit us down at a desk and try to teach us when we were younger after school hours in the afternoon, in the evening, and on the weekends. They're like, oh, you're actually living out that dream. I was like, yeah, I actually am, except I don't stand there and I don't lecture them like I used to lecture you. But today I want to give you 6 categories for basics of the homeschooling for you to consider. I want to encourage you to write down these basics and scribble down maybe a couple of notes and things that you want to look into and investigate a little bit later. I have tons of episodes on a lot of these topics, but beyond these topics, these are going to be a little bit more, well, most of them are just very straightforward. They're black and white. But then when we want to get into the mindset and the heart behind homeschooling, I have a lot of episodes on that, but we're not going to focus on that part as much today. So the first category I want to talk about is a curriculum. That is always the number one question for homeschool moms because we think school, so therefore we have to have curriculum. And I'm not saying you don't have to have curriculum. But when we go into our very first year of homeschooling, I can guarantee that curriculum is on your mind and you have a lot of curriculum. I want to encourage you that, or basically tell you, break it to you, that it's going to feel overwhelming. I want to tell you to start off slow and at the very basic of it all, focus on reading and math. Now, that reading might be teaching a child to read or getting a child excited about reading. It might be helping a child learn to read a bit more and better. Now, part of the 3 R's is reading and writing and arithmetic, right? That's what they say. So we can tie in some of the writing, but I would start off in the beginning with the reading and the math. So what does that math look like? When it comes to curriculum, there's a lot of really great, solid choices out there, but it's really looking at what is your budget and what is best for each of your kids. I had decided at the time when we started homeschooling, I needed something that was going to be a bit more rigorous because I felt like my educational background in math was very lacking and I was really nervous that I was going to pass that on to my kids. Guess what? They all became really good at math because of that more rigorous curriculum. And guess who else got really good at math? I did. I learned math. I learned why we do the things that we do, and my math facts were extremely sharpened at that time because of teaching it. But curriculum is always the first things that people are asking about. So focus on that reading, no matter what level is of it, and focus on the math. You want to add in some writing for the younger years. Writing is just penmanship, is learning to hold a pencil, and it's learning to write the letters in the proper way. Writing then goes on as you get to the high school years. That would be maybe writing a research paper. But in between there's creative writing. There's just so much that can be done. There are curriculums. There are options out there. And when you start off homeschooling, I would encourage you to get something that'll help guide you because oftentimes most of us have not done this before. And so to make up something sounds crazy and foreign or to put things together. So it's okay to get your curriculum. It's okay to use that to guide you. There are fun subjects you could do, such as history and science. I know a lot of us didn't really see those as fun when we were in school. So let's take history, for example. We were forced to memorize a lot of dates and generals and wars and battles, and they didn't quite make sense. But what if you get into behind the scenes, behind what actually provoked that war? What was that? Read the stories behind it. Science can be a lot more fun. We don't have to make it super dry. We can make it more interesting. But curriculum is always the number one thing to do to do. So start off just small because you can always add. And if maybe you have purchased a lot of curriculum, put some of it aside, maybe in a closet or a cabinet somewhere, and just do a little bit of it and get really good at that. Get really good at being a family, get really good at everybody being home and having more of a routine. And then you can slowly add in that curriculum, maybe this year, and maybe some of it you hold off until next year, and that is okay to do. The second category I want to talk about is your daily schedule. So in this term, yes, I'm going to use the word schedule, but I do not suggest having a schedule of from 9:15 to 9:45, we do this subject. I'm not talking about a schedule in that type of way. I'm just talking about the overall layout of your day. And I suggest within that schedule that you just follow a routine or a rhythm. My family and I, maybe it was mostly me, thrived off of having a start time, having a breakfast time, and then having a time that we began our homeschool. Some years we would start our homeschool with our morning time, with our lessons together. And some years we would start off with actual lessons and then do our morning time a little bit later. And some years I would say we are starting off with our morning time at say 8:30 a.m. My kids, I knew that they were up. I didn't have to get them up. They were already up. And that was plenty of time for us to have breakfast and get ready. I'd say we're starting with our morning time at 8:30 a.m. If you are up and ready and you have your chores done and you want to start on an independent subject before that, you are welcome to do that. My kids oftentimes would, and they would work on some of their math before we did it because they wanted to just get it done. And so they could move on with the day once we were done with everything else. But when you're looking at your daily schedule, we think about school. And in school, pretty much Monday through Friday is the same. Starts at this time, the bell rings at all of the same times. And you might have a rotation of some things, like you might have library one day, and then the next day that same hour is replaced by gym, and then art class and music class. Guess what? You get to decide if you want to do art class every single day, you can do art class every single day. You want to do gym every single day, do gym every single day. Gym class, wah, wah, wah. I didn't mind it in elementary school, but come middle school, high school, it was pretty much awful. And I can almost guarantee that if you are sending your kids out to play, they are getting plenty of physical education. And I counted a lot of different things that my kids did. They would play games at a youth group. They would play games at Awana. They got into sports. That was all PE. But when it comes to your schedule, you could have every day kind of looks the same as far as the beginning and the end. Or you might say, you know what, I want to do homeschool just in the morning and the afternoon is free, or we go run errands, or we go hang out with friends, or whatever it is you want to do. Or you could have certain days have certain routines. Maybe Monday and Wednesday kind of mirror each other. Maybe Tuesday and Thursday mirror each other. Or maybe you have a co-op on one of those days, and that is a completely wild card kind of day. That day looks independent of all different days. But you get to set that routine up, that schedule, and there's a lot of different options. I'm going to talk about some different things here in future episodes, and then there's tons of other past episodes. But oftentimes, we learn what works for our family through trial and error. Now, that doesn't mean that error is a bad thing. That error is just a learning point. The third category is for you to think to yourself, what is education? What does that mean for my family? I highly recommend that you talk to your husband about this, that you guys are on the same wavelength, you have the same vision and goals for what education is, but really think about what is education. We have been told for so many years, our entire lives, right, that education is school. School is education. That doesn't mean that they're not getting any education there. It doesn't mean that you agree with the education that they might be getting there. But we are told that you can't be educated if you don't go to school. Elementary school, middle school, high school, college, you are not educated if you don't go through their system. But that is false. There is a lot more education out there. So I want to encourage you to really look into what is education. If you have not read the book called Dumbing Us Down by John Taylor Gatto, I want to highly encourage you to read that. And even better, if you could read that together with your husband. I get messages all the time from moms who are saying, my husband's not sure about this. He's worried about them not being socialized, or he's worried overall about homeschooling. And I say, read this book together. It is a small, short book. It is an easy read. It is very engaging. It's very thought-provoking. and you will have a lot of really good conversations. So I highly recommend starting off with that and then see where your research takes you and see where your conversations take you, and the two of you decide what is education for your family. The fourth category is to know your homeschool regulations. What exactly does it say for your state? A great resource is HSLDA, I don't know if it's .com or .org, Homeschool Legal Defense Agency, I think, Association. But anyway, if you put in HSLDA, you will be able to get to it, and you can go straight to where they have your state, look for the map, and you can get the homeschool regulations. Do understand, I mean, this is a legal website, so they are going to be much more conscientious of making sure that they interpret the regulations in your state properly, but it is your responsibility. I still highly recommend going to your state's website, finding the homeschool regulations, reading through them, printing them out, and to know what your rights and your responsibilities are. I live in a very highly regulated homeschool state. I have lived in 2 highly regulated homeschool states, and I don't love it, but I have to do it. And I do it, and then we move on. I don't get stuck and get focused on that. It is not scary at all. So you need to make sure that you know your homeschool regulations, that you operate within those, you meet the requirements that you need to do, and the rest of the time, you just love on your homeschool, okay? Category number 5 for you to think about is your style of homeschooling. I'm going to do a brief overview, like a quick flyover, maybe like a 30,000-foot view of styles in the next episode. So make sure you tune in a couple of days. But if you're looking for a deep dive on the different homeschooling styles and figuring out which one aligns with your family right now, that's where your homeschool blueprint, we go into that deep. There's a workbook, there's a way for you to go through it, and there's videos, there's tons of resources and websites and links and things for you to figure out what is going to serve your family best this homeschool year. So you might be brand new and might be like, what are you talking about when it comes to styles? Now, I highly recommend figuring out your homeschool style. What are you inclined to before you even pick out your curriculum? But I can almost guarantee that you have your curriculum, whether you know what your preferred homeschool style is or not, because we just kind of jump straight into that. I can almost guarantee that you might have an idea of education, or you might have your style and you might not have those quite aligned together. And those are really good to work together, your style and your education philosophy, because really what is education, what are you focused on, will help dictate which style is going to align with you. And then sometimes if you're like, I don't really know what education is, once you figure out your style, then you can start to say, oh, okay, now I'm starting to realize what education is to me and what I think is important. So I want to encourage you that if you're looking for your style of homeschooling and all of the roads that come from that, go over to your homeschool blueprint and get started on that today. And you can be through it in a pretty quick time and have your homeschool lined up and set up for this homeschool year. You can get that information at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/blueprint. And you can also just click the link that is in the show notes and go straight to it. But knowing your style. So some of the examples are Charlotte Mason, unschooling, there's traditional homeschooling, there's classical homeschooling, there's Montessori, there's an eclectic, which would take a combination of others. And you get to decide if you want to do a combination or a straight shot of a certain style. Before we close, the very last category is to think about co-ops and programs. Do you want to join a co-op? Do you not want to join a co-op? There is no right or wrong answer to that overall, unless it doesn't fit with what your goals are and what you think is going to serve your family well this homeschool year. Our very first year of homeschooling, we did join a co-op because I had one friend and we needed more. I needed to get to know more people. And so that was my reason for joining the co-op. And the co-op was, it was just like you show up just that day, learn what you're going to learn, do your arts and crafts, have fun. And unless you were teaching a class, you didn't really have to think about it in between. There was no homework or anything. It was perfect for us at that time. But is that what you need right now? Do you need more of a socialization? Do you need something that's a little bit more relaxed? Do you want something that's a bit more rigorous? What are you looking for a co-op? Or you're like, nope, not interested in a co-op. Maybe there's other programs to join, or maybe you want to do some type of music lessons or art classes or programs at your library. Look into those and see if they can help come alongside and to supplement your homeschool. If you're looking for a chance to get together with other Christian homeschool moms and you'd like to join us in the Northeast, Little by Little Homeschool Conference is on October 18th of this year in Syracuse, New York. You can get the details, get your ticket. Would love to see you. Guest speakers that I have coming are Whitney Newby and Zan Tyler. I'll be speaking as well. It's going to be an amazing and refreshing day. You can get those details again and grab your ticket at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/conference. So I hope those categories have gotten you excited, given you some food for thought and some direction. And friend, I am just so ecstatic about your very first homeschool year, or the fact that you are looking to refresh and kind of reset and get some things through your mind and get yourself excited about the homeschool year. Again, your homeschool blueprint is what is going to be your partner in doing that, and I'd love to have you join me over there. Until next time, remember we're going to talk about styles. I will be right back here soon to talk about that.
Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.